What's going on? Vincent Rapsardi, Big Blue on Bias.com. Thank you to those who've liked, commented, and subscribed. I really appreciate you guys. Make sure to turn notifications on so every time I post you get a notification and you can come join in on the conversation. Big win for the New York Giants today. Big win. Okay. Daniel Jones, Joe Judge finally have their signature win. I said this, I tweeted this out yesterday. Today's game was the biggest game of Daniel Jones' career. So I wanted to see how he would respond to that situation. How would he respond to a situation where the Giants have an opportunity to have the same amount of wins as the Philadelphia Eagles for the NFC East lead? Now the Eagles still have a better winning percentage, so they are still in first place, the Eagles. But they are now tied in the win column. So this was a big game for Jones, big game for Judge. I wanted to see how they would respond, and they responded very, very well. I think a lot of people after this game can say, wow, you know, a lot of people that were in the middle on Daniel Jones, which a lot of us were, including myself. I want to see what he can do moving forward. This was a big step for him. Okay, this was a big check mark for him in the positive direction for Daniel Jones and his future with the New York Giants. Big win for Joe Judge as well, because they played really good football. Daniel Jones had the highest QBR of his NFL career today, 91.5, the highest of his NFL career. He ran for 64 yards. He had a touchdown. He completed 75% of his passes. 8.7 yards per attempt. So he wasn't just completing, dinks and dunks for, 6 yards per attempt, which is mainly where he's been this year. 8.7 yards per attempt is really, really, really good. Huge game for Daniel Jones. Really stepped up when they needed him the most. He stepped up and he played great. I don't think anyone could have a complaint about Daniel Jones. He didn't turn the football over for the second straight week. He was great. Joe Judge, his team was prepared. They just look like a prepared football team, and they've been playing so many competitive games. You look at the San Francisco 49er game, was not competitive, right? That was their one game this year where they had no shot. They were terrible. They lacked any energy. But aside from that, they've been so competitive. For a team that's in the second year of their true rebuild, right? Their second full season in a rebuild. I call them a developing team because they're trying to take that next step. They're not trying to tank. Last year, they tried to kind of tank. I mean, they really didn't have much of a shot. But this year, they're really competing. They're in games. And the roster is better, right? There's better players than last season for the Giants. But Joe Judge, you have to give him credit, too, for really preparing their team against a division rival, a good quarterback in Carson Wentz. And how about this? 0 for 9 the Eagles were on third down. 0 for 9, okay? Patrick Graham, home run hire. What he's done with what he has, just think about it. Lorenzo Carter after the season. O'Shane Ximines has barely played. Marcus Golden was traded, and even when he was on the team, he wasn't really playing that many snaps. Xavier McKinney hasn't played a single snap, second-round rookie. Baker and Beal left the secondary pretty thin, right? That cornerback 2 spot, Baker's situation, Beal opting out. So they were thin in the secondary, and they've pieced it together at their second cornerback spot as best as they possibly could. And I just watched the Giants defense. I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm not saying, they're the 2000 Ravens here. I'm not saying they're the 2015 Broncos or the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. But for what they have, pretty good defense, right? Especially you look on paper before the season. I had done a video in the offseason, and I say Dave Gettleman's kind of putting together a defense like a modern-day baseball team, where you don't really see too many, star players on paper, but you put everything together, and it leads to something good, right? A bunch of solid players, and it leads to something pretty good. Okay, that's kind of how modern-day baseball teams are built, where you look at the Twins or the Rays, you don't see all these star players, right? But they win games, right? They win games. They do the math. And that's kind of what Dave Gettleman has done with their defense. Before the season, you looked at it on paper and you said, okay, there's no star players. There's no Khalil Mack. There's no Aaron Donald. There's no Stephon Gilmore. We looked at it and you're like, okay, there's a bunch of good players. And they can kind of piece together a pass rush. And they've done that again with Lorenzo Carter being hurt, with O'Shane Ximines being hurt. Golden traded, and they're still doing a good job piecing together a pass rush. And now you look at it, and a guy like James Bradberry, he's kind of elevating himself to an elite level player, where next year you're going to look at the Giants on paper and you're going to say, James Bradberry, check, that guy is a Pro Bowl, All-Pro kind of corner. Blake Martinez, check, he's kind of an All-Pro, Pro Bowl linebacker. Leonard Williams might be an All-Pro, Pro Bowl defensive lineman. So all of a sudden, these pieces who before the season, you thought, okay, good players, they've really elevated themselves. They've played probably better than they've ever played before. And you have to give credit to Patrick Graham. You have to give credit to his defense. And some of these other players that are stepping up. Jabril Peppers, he's playing really well over the past few weeks. Really starting to step up. Kyler Fackrell's had a nice season for the Giants. Dalvin Tomlinson has had a very nice season for the Giants. They didn't want to trade him at the trade deadline. Remember, his contract ends at the end of the season, so it looks like they want to keep him. They like him. Leonard Williams had 5 quarterback hits today. 5. That's the most of any Giant this season. No Giant has had that many quarterback hits in a single game this season. So he's been great. Bradbury played very, very well. Again, 2 passes defended. I understand the Eagles, they're not this great football team, but again, for a young developing team like the Giants, they knew that this game had special meaning, right? This is a game where they can kind of prove themselves in the division. It's not just the Washington football team. The Eagles a little bit better, right? A good quarterback in Carson Wentz. They had an opportunity and they took advantage of it. And it's a big win for Daniel Jones and Joe Judge.